just look at this time of year these days as just a special time of year where car owners, friends reconnect. You take that favorite car out for a cruise. You head up to the Tulip Festival or down to Ocean Shores. So, wherever you go. But you also make sure that on a Saturday or Sunday morning, or a friend or whatever, you get with them and you go cruising somewhere to a hamburger joint on a Friday or a Saturday night or even a weeknight, to grab a quick bite to eat, and you take the 64 Malibu Super Sport with you, or you take your Honda Civic that you're putting together with your son as kind of his high school graduation going away to college project, or the different various car projects that we've had in the garage all winter. We've been getting them ready to go. Well, now they're shined up and they're out in the street, or maybe they're not ready to go yet. Maybe you also feel or get that tinge of disappointment when something that you thought was going to happen, the wheels that you wanted were going to come, or the paint job that you saved up your pennies for was not finished quite on time, or is it going to be finished until another month into the season. It's especially frustrating up here in the Seattle area and the Northwest because the weather window we have is so small that it's like boom, boom, boom. You got the end of April, May, June, July, and September starts to get a little cool, and by the first week in October, it's over. But this is the kind of the start of it. It's the start of something big. It's the time all these meets are happening. Everybody gets together and they show off their cars. It really is the coolest time of year for me because I get to go out and I get to see people and I meet them, and sometimes I even cajole them into watching the show, listening to the show. I try to make it as easy for them as possible and try to give them good information, and hopefully that translates into a community that we have here on the air, that we all keep in touch with each other through the show, through the Facebook page, through the social media channels. They can be used for good. We know that. And, it's my favorite thing because as you know me, if you know me for the time that I've been on the air here in Seattle or when I was on the air in Pittsburgh, that I love that community of people that get together through radio, through this type of communication, and make friends and get to know each other and get to swap stories and all of that kind of stuff that happens when you show up and you talk to people, when you talk to each other. So that's what we have in front of us. Besides the talking about community and talking about cars and talking about things that are going on, we're really going to get into EVs. And I know I got a couple of messages from Vinnie. Will you stop talking about EVs? They're dead. There's nothing there. You're barking up a dead tree and this and that. And listen, I barked up many a dead tree in my life. And believe you me, it wasn't a pretty sight. But that being said, I will keep barking up this EV tree because I believe that these cars have great value. That we are not realizing potential value on these cars. And every time I see that, I think it's a sad story because, as you know, as I've mentioned before, time and time again, I always was impressed very early in my career by a letter from Frank Sinatra to some guy who, said that Sinatra told him, "You're wasting your talent. You're not connecting with your audience. If you don't connect with your audience, if you don't look at these people, if you don't treat them in a special way, that you're selling yourself short. You're wasting your talent." And it so impressed me that Sinatra would take, first of all, the time to write that to somebody. But second of all, that idea that, you have this talent, you use it, and you waste it, and you don't apply it where it's supposed to be given. And hand it to people and help people. And if you don't use it, you're selling not only yourself short, but your community. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to preach, but I am going to say that the EV situation is something that I feel that we've been sold short on, we've been robbed of, and I'm going to do my little part to keep people interested in these cars and interested in the just the vast potential I see in them. Maybe I'm years ahead of the curve. Maybe I'm barking up that tree again, but that's okay. I got a lot of bark left in me. I'm all right. And if you really don't like it that much, if it really turns you off, I'm sorry. But I'm not gonna, as I said, I think that one day you will look at these cars and say, "What was I thinking when you know, I went out and bought a gas engine, or I went out and paid overpriced for a big truck when I didn't need a big truck. I could get by with a little K truck and Anyway, I'm talking a little too much here in the situation. Um, when the situation calls for that to tell you that Jim Gorzolani of Forbes magazine is going to join us in a few minutes. He's written a wonderful article among many articles that he's written about the current EV situation, how you can benefit financially from it if you're in the market for a car. And when you hear the numbers and see what he's written and hear from him, I think, I don't think you're going to run out and buy one right away. But if you're a smart consumer, what you'll do is you'll check it out. You'll say, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. Looks like he knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to check it out. Is it true that, I can go to a PCC, park my car outside, plug it in, and when I come out, my car will have 250 miles of range, all ready to go for virtually free. Well, in PCC's case, free because they pay for the electric charging on your car. So you can literally go shopping and have them pay you a tank of gas to go shopping. It's not a bad deal. Besides all the other stuff that's available, whatever tax credits in Washington there still are, and all the other different stuff. I think it's something that you should know about, and we will talk to Jim. We're also talking a little bit this morning about passenger cars. And are they dead? Not if you're driving what I'm driving this week. They're not. Not if you're tooling around town in what I think is a wonderful car, a beautiful car, a car that if you don't have to have the huge Gunda SUV that's bigger than everybody else on the road, or even the small SUV, and you get into this thing, you feel like you're driving a special vehicle. And it's a great experience to be low to the ground, to be close to the highway, to be on the same level as other people you're driving with, not having to figure out, should you be in four-wheel drive, should you be in two-wheel drive, should you be in nine-wheel drive, do my rear wheel steer, or this and that and the other thing. No, the biggest decision when you get in this car is sport or urban driving, city driving. That's probably and what radio station you want to listen to, or what podcast am I going to plug in this morning? All of those are the decisions that are on the board, and you do it wrapped up in, I think, a very good looking package, and one that sticks out now because people they have been jinxed off of electric vehicles. They have also been jinxed off of passenger cars. It's strange how we can get jinxed off of something so easy. Makes you scratch your head. So we'll talk a little bit about passenger cars coming up as well, and their place in our society right now. Price of gas around the Seattle area seems to have held steady this week. If you're expecting, you're driving around seeing that price of gas, and it's, I don't know, 7.14 on the corner gas station here for diesel. Close to 6 for just regular gasoline, unless you go down to Costco, or it's a tad under 5. But you have to be a member to buy gas there, I believe. Yeah, you do, because you have to put the card in the thing. But the price has held steady because people can go through the Straits of Hormuz once again. And or at least that's what they're telling us. I haven't been through the Straits, so I don't know. Uh, but if you're expecting to look at your corner gas station and see $2.99 for gas or $2.50 for a gallon of gas, you probably have a better chance of turning on your TV tomorrow afternoon to see me play first base for the Mets. It's just, they're not going to, even if it does go down, what has been needed here is not going to happen, and that is some kind of price control, at least for the duration of the time on gasoline and on essentials, which is something that no president since Nixon has really had the nerve to do, is to put that power into use because listen, I don't want to get into politics here, but it's just it's not going to happen. Money says it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but you will at least be able to, for the foreseeable future, it looks like, to get gasoline for your car. And right there, anybody will tell you you should consider that to be a blessing, that you can even get gasoline for your car. So be happy about that. Some other stuff we got. Yo, Vinnie, what are you driving this week is coming up as well. And we'll also be taking a closer look at that Volvo that I was driving a couple of weeks ago. Volvo is a car that is built in Belgium by a Chinese-owned company, enjoyed by people in Sweden, and used to be the biggest and hottest car here in Seattle for many, 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 many years. Uh, if you couldn't drive on a street in Ballard without seeing, a couple of older people driving a Volvo down, Ballard Avenue or up one of any of the shopping streets there. They were the car until Subaru came along with the dogs and knocked them like, whoa, you know, all of a sudden the dogs attacked Volvo, and you don't see as many Volvos as you used to see. Other reasons too, but it's one of those things where the Volvo dealer in Seattle is a small dealer. It's a family-owned dealer. It's a great setup, and those people are happy with the amount of cars they sell, so they don't do a lot of advertising. They don't do this, they don't do that. That might help them along a little bit, and it's a shame because it is a great product, and both in gas and electric. They have a pretty decent product and a comfortable product and a very high tech product. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in the show as well. All right. That's the big stuff that's happening. Some other smaller things that we'll weave in to the show as we roll along this morning. Um, if you are joining us through Instagram, I think we have you all cranked up and set up to go as well. I know that we have had, these streaming services, they kind of go back and forth in the quality of how they get you on the air. Um, the one that I've used for a long time now does a pretty good job, but they get wonky sometimes as well. So if you're having a problem getting us, or if somehow you're not able to get on us on one social media channel or the other, um, just go to our YouTube channel. It's the easiest way to get us. I've now put what do they call those things? QR codes. So all you got to do is point your phone at the computer, your screen, and hit the thing and click. It'll take you right to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us through there. The sound quality is good. I don't know what their commercials situation is, but everything, you got to pay for everything. Speaking about commercials, we do want to thank our good friend George Jackson of George Jackson Promotional Specialties, who has been a longtime sponsor of this program. He keeps us on the air. He keeps us, he keeps me in shoes at the very least, and keeps in gasoline, which you need to drive the cars, or charging stations, which you need to drive the cars. One way or the other, you got to pay the piper. But George, whose business is getting promotional items for your business, to promote you, to get your name, to get your business, to get what you do in front of people. Whether it's a T-shirt with your name on it, a keychain, one of those little old-time plastic keychains, a logo design, a jacket, towels for your golf tournament that you're going to have, whatever it is. If it is something that will advertise your business through the use of those mediums, then give George a call. He's at gjpromo.com on on social media. His website is gjpromo.com. And you can talk to him, and you can deal with somebody, with the person, not with an AI or something that you never get a chance to talk. You just deal with a solid person. And George is the kind of guy that when he says, I'm going to have 200 boxes of this stuff at your front door on Thursday morning, George is going to have it at your front door at Thursday morning. I've never heard a complaint about George about not getting stuff there on time, or at the very least saying, hey, George called me and told me the stuff was going to be a day or two late, and he made up for it. He sent a couple of guys over to help me unload, or whatever it was, to get you going, to help you. That's what the guy's all about. That's why I've been in business for so long. He's one of those guys from the Jersey Shore. You know how that works. If the sun is shining, maybe they're not going to show up. But a cloudy day, they're all over the place. Seriously, George is a good guy. And if you need advertising specialties for your business, for your organization's golf tournament, please look him up. Please go there, and please help us keep this show on the air by helping George keep his business running. All right, let's jump into, I think we have Jim on the pipe. I think he is ready to go. So let me click a button or two here, and we'll even go to Jim a little bit earlier than I thought we would. But I think he is a trooper, and he's ready for it. And if not, he can go grab another cup of coffee and get back to the screen. But let's click this here, and I think we have Jim GORZELANY with us from Forbes magazine, among many other writing endeavors. He's a freelance writer that writes for Forbes, which I'd say is a pretty heady title to have under your name, among other things. And Jim, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you? Come sta?
I'm good. Bene, grazie. I love hearing somebody hitting the Italian early in the show. Man, you're a Chicago guy, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Oh, I lost your audio, Vinnie.
There we go. Got you back. Beautiful.
Okay.
I was saying, every day you hear the word Italian or somebody talking Italian, even if just for a second, for order an Italian beef sandwich, right?
Absolutely, with hot peppers.
I love this guy. It's making me. I'm going to go grab lunch. You do the show. How are you, my friend? Good?
Doing fine.
Good. Great article in Forbes, man, that came across my screen about EVs. You seem to be a guy like I am that still believes in the electric vehicle and still believes that it's going to have a place in our automotive society one way or the other.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with what you said earlier. 20 years from now, we're going to look back and think, what were we thinking? But, it's a unfortunate combination of circumstances that have really kind of sent the whole EV boom downhill in the last year. Part of it was the $7,500 federal tax credit going away. But more importantly from that, since that only really applied to a relatively small number of vehicles, a loophole in the legislation allowed automakers to pass along the $7,500 to lessees. So you had an awful lot of people leasing an EV and getting the subsidy. Well, that went away. Plus, and myself included, there was a number of kind of unfortunate publicity. A couple of years ago, we had a really bad winter, and people started noticing, hey, my car doesn't go as far when it's cold out. Well, neither does a gasoline car, but it's more
Right.
pronounced, especially at the time, a couple years ago. You were lucky if you had an electric car that went more than 200 miles on a charge. Now, 300 is kind of the new normal. And I never got the impression that automakers or their dealers were all that enthusiastic about selling electric cars.
Hmm.
I see a lot of commercials for full size pickup trucks that, in my opinion, really don't need the promotion. And you don't really see much of anything about an electric car and why you would want one. People bought Teslas early on because they were status symbols, they were for affluent green people. And it opened up the gates, and everybody wanted to be Tesla. So you've got this large number of very expensive electric cars out there, you know, $100,000 Mercedes and BMWs and whatnot. But they sort of ignored the other end of the market, which they're catching
Right.
up to now. You've got a redesigned Nissan Leaf for $30,000, a new Chevrolet Bolt in the same price structure, in addition to a couple of other, the Kias and Hyundais and Chevys that are affordable and approachable and are considerably less money than the average car and certainly way cheaper than a pickup truck. But what they needed to do was to really show you, okay, if I buy this car, other than I don't have to go to a gas station, I don't have to get out in the cold weather, I don't have to get waste money on lottery tickets and candy bars at the gas station, is what you can save at the pump. I looked it up, and if you bought a new Nissan Leaf, for example, the EPA says you'll save $7,500 over the course of 5 years compared to the average new vehicle. Now, that's not chump change. Not to mention, the average service visit for an electric car is rotate the tires and change the wiper blades. You don't have
Yeah.
an oil change, you don't have belts, the transmission's only got one gear. I mean, off the bat, that makes up for anything, in my opinion, of shortcomings. Now, a lot of the automakers are rethinking their strategies because they come and go with the tides of popularity. But right now we're in a situation where if you're in the market for an electric car, you'll never get a better deal.
Yeah.
I went through everything and found 11 EVs having rebates of $10,000 or more slapped on the hood, not counting the dealer's discount. The one that really opened my eyes was on the Polestar 3, very nice car made by Volvo. They're putting an $18,000 cash rebate on it. Plus, if you qualify for the other rebates for conquest or repeat sales, it comes out to $22,250 off. Okay? Or look at the Chevrolet Equinox, which is a great vehicle to begin with. The total amount of rebates on it this month is $10,000. That makes it around $25,000 to start. That's a Toyota Corolla. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you won't get better than that. However, if you want to buy a used one, we're going to be coming into a period where it's going to be a buyer's market, because according I have it here from Cox Automotive, there was something like way close to 250,000 2 and 3 year old EVs coming back to the dealerships this year off lease. Now, number one, an off lease vehicle is almost always one of the best used cars out there because by contract it has to be well taken care of, only
Right.
have a certain amount of miles, and if there is anything wrong with it, the dealer charges the lessee to have it fixed. Well, these things are going to start clogging up lots, and dealers are going to be falling over themselves to move the metal. And when you have a $10,000 rebate that brings a new one, down to $25,000, they're certainly not going to charge that much for a 2-year-old car on the lot.
Right.
Um,
They'll try, but they won't get it won't happen.
It's an amazing thing. And you've driven electric cars. Anybody that's driven one, their eyes open. They think, this is not what I expected. I think people still think an electric vehicle is a glorified golf cart.
Yeah.
But even the slowest ones are fast. They got that instant continuous torque, which just shoots you out like a cannon. Now, that's one benefit and one reason why a lot of performance cars are turning towards, if not full electric power, at least hybrid power, because it's a really reliable and inexpensive way to pump a lot more power into a vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's a reliable technology. The electric motors date back to the industrial age. We've got them perfected. This isn't some new, I've invented a new kind of turbocharger that'll get 500 horsepower out of a 1 liter engine. This is proven technology. Plus, they've gotten better with batteries. 5 years ago, you had to worry about, will this battery deplete to the point where I need to spend a big wad of money to replace it? Now, the technology is there so that you pretty much can expect the battery to outlast the car.
Yeah. Yeah. And which was one of the big things, the stink that was put on these cars in the beginning, is that the batteries, when one went down, when it was no longer usable, you were going to have to spend $10,000, $15,000 to replace it. I read a statistic somewhere, again, I take it all with a grain of salt, that said that there had been like under 2% of batteries in electric vehicles that have failed in the entire history of that weren't damaged in a collision or something like that, that just from mechanical just failed. Less than 2% in the entire history, which is now 15 years of electric vehicles, haven't had a problem with them. It's been probably repair-wise one of the best technologies ever to come along, because there's less parts, there's less stuff to go wrong.
Absolutely. I really have the impression that we've not educated the public enough to realize the benefits of an electric car. I mean, and other than cost-wise, of course, you have zero emissions. Now, the argument was big a couple of years ago that, you're just moving the pollution from the tailpipe to the plant that generates the electricity, which is true in a way, except you still come out ahead. And in an urban environment, every little bit helps to keep the air clean. Now, that's the one drawback, I think, to electric cars in cities, is that if you rent an apartment, you really don't have a place to charge up your car. And sorry to say, the charging network in America is still not anywhere where it needs to be.
Yeah, it's
we
brutal.
need to have the Shells and whatnot put charging stations in their gas stations. You need more businesses like Walmart. By us, the Walmart has a 6-bay charging station going, and sometimes there's lines to get charged up. I mean, it's getting there, but again, I think we were on the road a few years ago for the government to be involved to make it easier for people to open up these charging stations, which we don't have now. But in the city, it's a perfect thing if you're in a situation where you're not driving 200 miles a day and whatnot. But those are the people that are least able to keep an EV charge. Now, out here in suburbia, everybody's got a garage with a power line in it. And in fact, another one of the myths with EVs is that, I've got to spend $1,000 to have a 240-volt line put in so I can charge the car. Well, if you don't put 200 miles a day on it, you can get by with a 110 trickle charge. If you're you've got a 15-mile commute, it'll work for you. And if you're in a situation where you do need a a big jolt fast, yeah, then you take it over to the, level 3 charger.
I've taken quite a few now, road trips in electric cars, both east and south down to California, and the charging stations have now been built out, at least along those major routes, to where you can find EV charging almost everywhere along I-90. I would have no fear if you said, Vinny, come over for dinner or come over for lunch tomorrow afternoon, and take your electric vehicle. I would have no fear in getting into my car and driving it eastward towards Chicago, because I could tell you that along the way there'll be enough charging stations to get me to Chicago, probably to New York. It wasn't that way 3, 4, 5 years ago. It,
No.
it was it was different when you got along the prairie, you got out to Wyoming, places like that. But even the people in those states have realized that this thing is not going away, and I'm going to be able to make some money off it if I have these machines, because these guys that want to go to Chicago for lunch are driving back and forth or going places back and forth. And I think that is probably not going to change the scenario, not change the scene, but that combined with the electric trucks that are coming down the line is probably going to mean more charging stations, more places to, if you get into a situation like that, to charge up your electric car, to put the charge back in it, to go another 300, 400 miles, whatever you got to go.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to happen whether it happens slow or it happens fast. The technology is there. It's too good. I never quite understand the backlash that some people have towards electric cars, if it's too elite for them, and I'll be run over by my gas powered truck before I give it up. And yeah, but there's still going to be plenty of gas powered vehicles out there. I mean, one of the things the automakers found, they were putting all this money into big electric pickup trucks until testers found that, if you're towing a boat with a F-150 Lightning, you get only about half the range. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing with the gas. You use more gas when you're towing, but it's something people have to think about. And as you're talking about taking trips, people are not accustomed to planning a trip around a route that enables them to fill up the tank of gas. They're knowing that pretty much every exit on the interstate will have a gas station. If we got to that point with EVs, they'd sell like crazy.
Yeah. Um, and Jim Gorzelany from Forbes magazine, his Forbes website as well, is joining us here on Drive Time Radio on Saturday morning. Thank you for listening to the show this morning. The article talks about these great EV deals. If you are a low end shopper right now, if you're somebody that you take a look and the average price of a car, new car in America, is hit, if not gone over $50,000. It seems to me that electric cars should present some bargains for you. Some cars that you might be able to buy around between 29 and $39,000, in that kind of spot of what we now as economy car. It's not going to have every bing bang bing option in it, like electric curb feelers and vacuum ashtrays, but for transportation, for a car that's going to get you from point A to point B every day and do it in a good fashion, there's probably some pretty nifty buys out there.
Oh, indeed. I mean, you really want to get down to brass tacks. Like I said, the Chevrolet Equinox, you're talking about $25,000 after rebates. Even the little bit larger Chevy Blazer, you've got maybe around $44,000. A Hyundai Ioniq 5 is about $32,000 after a rebate. You're in that $30,000 range. The Kia Niro EV is $30,000 after rebates. That's the sweet spot, really, for my money, for the average consumer. And there's surprisingly, I found 27 electric cars that are priced less than the average new vehicle. Um, you know,
Wow.
the Nissan Leaf is $30,000 without a rebate. The Volkswagen ID4 is a little more expensive at $45,000, but that doesn't have a rebate on it. But I bet on a lot of these vehicles, there's what they would call in the business a secret rebate, which is a direct to dealer spiff the automakers grant them to cut a deal without making the vehicle look cheap. Um, this is fairly common in the luxury market where you rarely see cash rebates, but you'll see lease bonus cash
Right.
because they don't want to cheapen, an $80,000 car by putting a $10,000 rebate on it. Now, it was a surprise to me that Polestar was putting, up to $18,000 and more on their cars because that's not usually the way it works in the upscale auto market. But there's a lot of buys out there that you want a 2025 Ford Mustang Mach E, you can get it for about $32,000, not counting the dealer discount. I mean, that's a lot of car for the money.
Which, yeah, I was just gonna say that's a fantastic car. I mean, I drove one a couple of weeks ago. First car I had driven to my memory, with a karaoke machine in it,
Yeah,
which I can only tell you made charging the car an experience because you're sitting around singing Dean Martin songs while you're,
yeah.
the charging doesn't seem to be long enough when you're when you're doing that. But it was one of those things that you're looking at this car and you're saying, how could people not be buying this car at 35,000 bucks? When you look around, you say this, it shocks me. Is it purely because somebody, something, someone has put a stink on this car? Um, uh, I'm just, that some government entity, some office holder, some person has just put it in people's head that these cars are not American. They're not for you. They're not what you should be buying. You know, it's crazy to think that, and the people would buy that, but they kind of do, don't they?
Well, I get back to the lack of promotion. For example, Honda introduced and is canceling the Prologue, which is essentially mechanically identical to the Chevy Equinox. I have never seen an ad for that. I would be venturing a guess. Very few people even know it exists out there.
Yeah.
Even Hyundai and Kia, which really have among the mainstream brands that have the most EVs, I don't even see any ads for their promotion very much. I mean, I've seen a couple of Chevy ads promoting their Equinox and Blazer and whatnot, but you know, you got to get behind these things. And again, I get back to it's an old tried and true technology that is still like the car of the future to people. And somewhere along the line, somebody's got to say, hey, look, this is a great car and here's why.
Yeah.
Rather than, the initial Tesla effect was it's cool to drive a high-tech car and look at me, I'm cool. Well, I don't care, Maybe it's because, over the years I've driven hundreds and hundreds of cars. When people ask me, well, what would you buy? When I bought it, we bought a Kia Soul. I'm not so spoiled as that. My tushy can't stand sitting in something less than a BMW or a Mercedes. You
Right.
know,
That Soul is a great car. I mean, you
it
talk
is.
about cars that cover all the bases, from being able to haul stuff from the garage sale to uh, being good economy wise, using gas, being fun to drive. They built enough fun to drive, and having a cool factor to it. I mean, there's a cool that car still is a cool. You still look at it when it's coming down the street, and I don't know what's that, 12, 15 years they've been rolling that car out.
Yeah.
And it's still a cool in my book. Now, maybe it's not as cool to others, but in my book, it's still a cool car. I still tell people, even though they stopped making it, look for a good used one. Look for a great used one. There's still new ones around dealer lots that can be had because for them, they're out of the Kia Soul business. But it's a stunning car, and in gas and electric, both ways. You
Yeah.
can have which the one you want, how you want it.
Well, you know, I don't quite understand the whole idea of driving a big pickup truck as a lifestyle vehicle.
Yeah,
You know, I've lived in this city very long time and see people parking these gigantic trucks on the street. And when I lived in Chicago proper, I would get these full size pickups and have to park 1 or 2 blocks away from the house because I couldn't find a big enough parking space. Um, I live in the suburb of Brookfield now, and there's a street with diagonal parking, kind of a main drag, and people put these oversized, XXL trucks so that you have to play slalom to get down the street, because they stick out so far. Now, God bless if that's what you like, that's what you need, but you know, people, the automakers blame the public for the price of cars being high because everybody wants this, that, and the other thing in it, and that's true. But you know, somewhere out there, there's a market for a vehicle that just goes. And maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Maybe it doesn't have leather seats and cooled seats and everything like that. But I've lately been doing a lot of used car pieces for Carfax, and it's funny to go back into the early 2000s when they still made vehicles that I can't remember now, that you had to pay extra for power steering. That's how
yeah.
basic the
Power
car was.
windows.
Yeah. Now I can't think of a car that doesn't have standard power windows or air conditioning, and certainly power steering.
Is Slate gonna if Slate, which is for those who might not know, is a startup company that's going to build pickup trucks that can be converted almost IKEA style to a small SUV. But their gist is that they're going to build a small pickup truck for under $30,000, and you outfit it the way you want to outfit it. It comes with a plug for your phone in the dashboard, and you'll use that as your GPS, as your phone, as your this, as your that, and it will have crank windows, which I can't wait for.
My kids
I
don't know
just
what that is.
yeah, it's a thing, and it's on the door, and you go like this, and the window appears in the slot. It's magic. Um, will the success of that or the failure of that company um, play into what we see in the future as
Well,
far as cars and trucks and electrics and
a lot of that depends on whatever their dealer network winds up being, what the dealers order for their inventory. It's long been a deal where you'd have a trouble finding a base model of anything in stock at a dealership. Now, I would think that $30,000 truck is going to be more like 40,000 out the door because people probably will want it equipped this way or that way. But look at the Ford Maverick. They sell the heck out of that thing, and that's can be one of the most basic vehicles you can buy right now.
right,
And yet it's practical, it's fun to drive, it's stylish, because it's inexpensive, it doesn't have to look cheap. I think
right,
that's with that vehicle, one of the things Ford has really nailed is how to take something that doesn't cost a lot of money, but you don't feel like a pauper for owning or driving it. You
right,
know. Plus, it's a car really under it all, and it drives like a car. And yeah, it's not going to pull a motorhome, but for a lot of people, that's where, if you remember back in the '60s when the Japanese imports were coming up, their big sellers were little pickup trucks.
right. The
The
Hilux,
Subaru Brat, the Toyotas.
the Chevy Love,
Yeah, I mean,
which
there's still a market for that. There's still kids out there that can't afford a $50,000 pickup. And even the mid-sized ones are over 40 grand. and there's still a handful to drive. People are throwing bikes in the back. If you've got kids and they're doing football, you could throw the equipment in the back of a four-door pickup and not dirty up the back of your SUV.
Right. And still put, as opposed to the days of the Hilux and those trucks, you can still put 3 kids in the back seat, one
Yeah.
in the front, and transport a quarter of your team down to the football field. You had cars, a great list of 5-figure rebates for April. And I know we're running out of April, but and again, when you look at the cars on this list, the Equinox, the Prologue, the Ionic, the Nero, the EV6, the EV9, the Polestar, the EX90. There's not bad cars on that list. I mean, everything there is, especially with Hyundai and Kia, who, in my opinion, have won the electric game. I mean, Hyundai, which is the parent company of both of those, flat out have just shown that electric cars are pretty damn good and can be uh, an everyday tool in our automotive arsenal. But again, not the promotions you said, not the piece behind it that makes people want to desire that car. Will Well, what effect will, when it happens, because it's going to happen someday, the Chinese EVs have on this market? We're going to have a little test run with Canada because they're going to let a certain amount of EVs in to Canada, and if you're smart, you'll be watching that because that's going to tell you, I think, a bit about how America will accept it. But uh, will the manufacturers continue to be able to keep the Chinese out, or is that going to change as well?
I don't know. I remember 20 years ago writing an article about the impending Chinese invasion and how they were going to take over, and it's not happened yet. However, from everything I read and see, they've really kind of got the genre nailed. And I don't know how at some point you can keep them out. And that's going to be a real challenge to the rest of the world, as it already is in Europe, to fight this. And it's going to come down to automakers in general surviving with the whenever we do get an onslaught of Chinese vehicles, to make their vehicles stand out for more than just price. From all accounts, the Chinese have really kind of perfected the electric car to a degree. Whether people in America are going to want to buy one, I don't know. But, you know, how many vehicles Americans buy that have domestic badges that are made in Korea or even China,
Right.
now? Uh, I really don't know if that's going to be a factor anymore. I remember when I started doing this years ago, um, I would get hell from people. I remember going to a party one of my relatives thrown, and was a bunch of union electricians in there. And this was just when I started writing about cars. I got an earful about Japanese cars and how could people buy them, and they're throwing people out of work and da, 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 da. Well, it's come full circle that they have plants in America and build cars here. Um, I don't. My instinct would tell me there's a lot of people that would never buy a Chinese branded car.
Right.
There's a part of me that says if they don't put a Chinese nameplate on it, maybe people won't care as much. Um, people don't need to necessarily know a BYD is a Chinese car,
Right.
which, by the way, BYD stands for Build Your Dreams, in case you wondered.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's manifest destiny. Let's face it. We're a global economy. Um, I'm not really sure how you could keep the Chinese completely out of the U.S. market. I mean, you could probably the only way you can do it is kind of what they're doing now would be to, tariff the heck out of them. But people will, I don't know, are people that smart to go and investigate and say, how come we're not getting these cars?
Well, so
I don't
far they
know.
haven't. Yeah, so far, I think the gist on the street is that, well, they're not that good, they're not that this, they're not, you hear people start off with they're not as good as American cars. Look at the stuff that comes over from China in the container ships. It's this, it's that. There's that real um sense of, well, if it's made, much as it was in Japan when we were growing up, if it was made in
Absolutely.
Japan, it was cheap. When, it was cheap until they sat there and perfected the technology to make it better. And then the stuff that you got from Japan was every bit as good as anything you got from here. Anything you bought here as a consumer, sewing machines or whatever, televisions, they learned that quality counts. Um, and that
And
people touch it and they feel it and they want to feel that quality when they open the box or put the key in the ignition.
and that came about very quickly. If you recall, it wasn't very long when it went to Japanese selling cheap transistor radios to people falling over themselves to buy a Panasonic or a Sony color television. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think we're necessarily at the point where we were in the 50s or 60s, where made in China would be necessarily a deterrent if they back it up with the goods. If they were here selling a cheap, flimsy, you know, nothing mobile, that's a different story. Um, but I don't know. I mean, look at VinFast. The
Yeah.
Vietnamese trying to sell EVs in America. I've never seen one on the street,
I
and
haven't seen one
I,
either. Haven't seen a dealer network. Haven't gotten an invitation to any kind of premiere or there was a trip a couple of years ago that they took a bunch of people to Vietnam, and I think that everybody going to Vietnam was more the attraction in the VinFest,
oh yeah,
especially when a couple of people got their hands on one and actually drove it. Um, the parts that would stay on the dashboard were impressive. The ones that fell off, maybe even more impressive.
the
Um,
Chinese have had a lot longer than the Vietnamese in the business of building and selling and developing cars.
yeah,
Um, I think people would be surprised uh, to see and drive a Chinese built electric car as to how the level of sophistication is compared to maybe what they would expect. But, you're not going to be buying a Chinese electric car at the dollar store.
no, no, no. It's gonna be an experience that it'll probably, from what I've read and what I've seen, and again, look at Canada. That's going to be your test run right there, of dealer networks and service and what you're going to get for your money. And from all indications, the people that buy Chinese cars are getting um, are getting a solid car that runs and does what they say it will. And that's really, when it comes down to the bottom line, Jim. I think that's what people want. They want to go to a dealer. They want to get a car. They don't want to sit in a hot room. They want to buy a car, and they want the car to do what the dealer says it's going to do.
Well, I
Not a
wouldn't be
lot more.
surprised at all surprised if in the next couple of years, a couple of mainstream automakers don't badge a Chinese built car one way or another in their product line, much the way, Buick sold Opals and, um, oh, I can't even remember how there used to be
Yeah,
about every
yeah,
big,
or
big three sold it.
Polestars, or I forget what make. Isn't there one of the Volvos that are that's made in China by
Yeah.
Geely, and there's a few more. Or, what I think may happen too in this, and I have no inside information, but if you remember when the Chinese first started manufacturing things at the levels, they bought. I remember they bought Maytag, the washing machine company, and they used their name. They put Maytag on the Chinese machines, whatever they were. And people still went out and bought a Maytag. They didn't care it was Chinese. They bought the name. They bought what they want. It wouldn't surprise me that if somewhere along the line here, a couple of manufacturers said, well, we don't want to carry around Dodge anymore. So we'll sell Dodge to the Chinese, and they'll build cars that will be badged as Dodges and sell them here in the United States.
Yeah,
And
much the
people,
same way Chevrolet sells vehicles built in South Korea,
yeah.
and puts a Chevy badge on
Although anybody who drove a Daewoo still remembers it.
it. Let me put it this way: the one Daewoo dealer that used to be near where I worked, fast became a pizza joint.
Yeah, yeah, and the pizza wasn't any good either, so it must be just a bad spot. Well, what are you working on next, Jim?
I'm not really sure. I go along with what's current. I think coming up on the horizon, we've got the cars most likely to have check engine light problems, and what the most common check engine light problems are. I hear from my contact that it's changed quite a bit in the last year. Traditionally it's been loose or bad gas cap or a catalytic converter.
Yeah.
That's perennially been among the top two. So I'm told, and I haven't, I'm under embargo, but I've seen from what I've heard, things are changing with regard to what goes wrong in a car. So I cover a lot of that sort of thing. Car buying, um, which cars are cheapest to buy,
Right.
used. I get a lot of sources for this sort of thing, and it's I don't have often a lot of long-term plans, because whenever I do, 3 or 4 things come up that I feel are more urgent.
Where's the best place to find your stuff and follow you?
Well, I'm on Forbes.com,
Yeah.
and that's my primary source right now. I do an awful lot of work for Carfax.com, and I've done in the past U.S. News. I had a syndicated newspaper column. I've cut back a little bit, but I'm still out there quite a bit. I mean, I've had people say I've searched your name and it pretty much blew up the computer, because I'm kind of all over everywhere.
Well, yeah, I had some guy search my name once on the computer, and it came up some mafia boss in Las Vegas. So I was a little bit worried about that one. Jim, listen, thank you. And one more question before I let you go. We're going to jump into with the remaining time we have left, the Toyota Camry and the passenger car in America. Is this a dying thing, or are we going to see at some point in the not too distant future a revival of this type of car?
Well, what goes around comes around, Vinny. You know that. And I've seen reports where some, auto executives are saying, maybe we want to get back into the passenger car business. I mean, my guess would be it's not going to be the lower, longer, wider type of passenger cars we grew up with, but more like a passenger car version of an SUV, that'll be easier to get in and out of. We'll have more headroom. I think it's going to come back, and especially I think in the small car market, where you have people that can only afford a Toyota Corolla. I mean, let's face it, they still sell a heck of a lot of Civics and
Yeah.
Corollas. There's a market for it. I was really surprised when, the big three pretty much got out of the car business. The only passenger car Ford sells is the Mustang. Um, I think it's a cycle.
Yeah.
People remember when people in the 90s fell in love with truck-based SUVs because it was a more rugged alternative to the car, and though they never went off-road with it, if they ever
Right.
wanted to, they knew they could. Well, that's come back. That got
Yeah.
abandoned by crossovers. Now it's back. Minivans, sales of minivans have been steadily rising.
Well, they washed off that stink of being a
Soccer
boring
mom.
family car, and I think Kia had a lot to do with that with the Carnival, and I forget the predecessor, was it the Sedona
Yeah.
that kind of styled it up, and or maybe it was Chrysler with the putting the vacuum in the back. Who knows? You carry your vacuum around with you, you know, that must have made people feel real happy. But well, we'll be looking for you. And thanks a lot for jumping on. It's a great article. I'm a big fan of EVs, and I wanted to, when I saw the article, I was really um, felt good about somebody that sees the potential in these cars, even though the government and many writers too are trying to do their best to get them to go away. I don't know why. Maybe they can't warm their breakfast on the exhaust manifolds or something. I don't know. But there's a fight to be had there, and I like the idea that you pointed out some good buys for people that are keeping the faith in these particular cars, which is like we said, in 10 years from now, we'll be scratching our heads saying, what the hell were we thinking on EVs when we're waiting in line for the charging stations that were never built.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
my
my
point of
friend.
view is that number one, I've never talked to somebody who owns an electric car that hated it. Okay. And my point of view here is they're not as expensive as you think when you come to all the discounts and the rebates and take advantage of it. You know, these cars aren't going to go away. It's,
Right.
going to happen.
Right. And it's funny because I was thinking in the middle when we were talking a few minutes ago of my quippy line, and I was going to say I never cursed an electric car. I've cursed the charging machines. I've cursed the charging machine network. There's very few times that I've looked at an electric car and said, "Oh, this sucks," or "This is bad," or "Oh, why did they do this?" Uh, If anything, it was over technologied in the building of the car to make it, where you had to kind of look for things that you might not be able to get. But no, the car itself, good piece of equipment. The network around it has to be built up a little bit better, but it'll get there. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the time you spent with us.
Thank you, Vinny. Take
All
care.
right, Jim Gorzelany from Forbes magazine. He took a few minutes to talk to us. And if you want to find his article on Forbes magazine, just probably the best thing is just to Google his name, and I'm going to put a link for it as well up on our Facebook page, so we'll be able to you'll be able to look at the article, read the article, and hopefully get some information on things about it. Thank you to Jim for joining us. Good guy. I've seen him out at a couple of different events, and it's been really good to spend a couple of minutes talking to him. What I'm doing right now is I'm jumping. I want to, in the remaining time left, I want to carry on the conversation a little bit more about the passenger car because I'm one of those people that do believe that the passenger car is a vehicle that, although it has kind of disappeared from American showrooms, foreign automakers are still have a belief in them. Europeans still have a belief in them, and I think they are going to be a car that is going to, at some point, have a lot of power in coming back, and being a car that people look at and say, "Man, why did we ever get away from that car? Well, what caused us to move away from the passenger car?" And I think that the car that I'm driving this week, and I'm going to load it here into the computer, it is a car that will go a long way toward changing that perception, toward making that car and that genre of car, a passenger car, um, you know, uh, uh, popular again. The genre put into a place that that people enjoy, that they're not looked down upon. It's a a Toyota Camry that I'm driving this week in my Vinnie. What are you driving this week series is is a particularly well thought out, well done car. And I think that and let me I'm just transferring it into my MacBook here so that we can get it on the air for you. But I do believe that this particular car is a car that the Toyota Camry is a car that gives you room, gives you space, gives you style, and gives you a feeling of you're not driving what everybody else is driving out there. And to me, that's something that's important. You know, that's something that a large car, a hybrid, these are cars that that you drive and you go, wow, that's a nice ride. It's comfortable. It's low to the ground. It's beautiful. It gives you everything you want in a car, not a truck, not an SUV, but a car. The one that I'm driving, which is the Nightshade Camry, is a stunning color. And the more I drive it, the more I play with the different settings for suspension and power and so on and so forth, the more, I feel like it's a dynamite car. It's a car that clicks all the boxes, checks all the boxes, does what it needs to do with all the boxes. Whatever boxes need to be done. I couldn't figure out, did I want it clicked? Do I want it? What did I want there? I wanted the film of the vehicle is what I wanted. All right, let's find this and put it up there. This is the Toyota Camry. Let me let me move it out to show you. This is the 26 Toyota Camry Nightshade. Um, Great ride. It's America's best selling passenger car. You can't buy one that sells more. It's redesigned back in 2025. Give it more aggressive look. They It comes in kind of sedate trims that would offend the family, or the sport oriented trim, or their kind of version of the Impala SS, or those particular cars that add wider tires, stiffer suspension, little spoilers, and so on and so forth to make you feel like you're driving, I don't know, a sports car. No, not really. But the Nightshade Edition blacks out the badges. You got a black 19-inch wheels on there, um, and the hybrid train on this thing is seamless. The all-wheel drive system that is available is flawless. It doesn't feel like it fails in any part of this car. I haven't taken it out on the Joe yet, but wireless charging, Toyota's Safety Sense driver assistance system is close to the best in the business. I guess the best in the business will be when nobody ever gets killed driving a Toyota, right? I don't know that that's ever going to happen. The new interior that they have put in to this car really makes it feel and seem uh, more luxurious. Wide screens, wide gauges, heads-up display, all the things that you need to put the car a step ahead. I mean, just looking at this car, it has a really nice, aggressive look to it. Not in that way of where you go down to, Dick's on Friday or Saturday night, like it's gonna scare the kids off. But everything you need is there. Look at that screen; it's nice and wide. Look at the dashboard. Everything you need is within reach, within a click or two away of what you need and where you need it. Once you familiarize yourself with this car, you don't see anything really that says to you, "Oh man, this thing is going to be a technological nightmare." The 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine with the two electric motors gives you about 232 horsepower, um, about 7 seconds to get to 60 miles an hour, quicker than most out there. And when you put it up against the Kia K5, the Honda Accord, and the Hyundai Sonata, well, we'll have to see. We'll tell you in the final review. But it's competition for those vehicles. People that are going to shop those cars are going to shop this one too. Um, the IIHS says that the Camry is a 2025 top safety pick. So that should mean something to you. If you are somebody who puts safety above all else, which you should be. When you put together all of this stuff, including pre-collision alert systems, automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assistance, the lane centering assistance, which I think is so important, the road sign assist, and automatic high beams. When you put them all together, the Camry comes up with so many components that make this car one of the safest you can drive in the category. Legroom, front and rear is good. Console is right there. You can shift gears where you need to shift gears. No standard transmission available, but that's pretty much anything these days. The 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster that you saw in the car is huge, and what that does, it makes you have to look off the road less when you're looking for something. It's well laid out. So again, it enables you to pay attention to driving. No matter how big of a screen you have, you still have to pay attention to driving. The blackout grille really makes it look solid. And the price on these things, again, the Nightshade with all-wheel drive is probably going to be somewhere around. Now, I don't have the sticker on this car yet, but I'm going to say it's about 40. The base price on it's going to be about 35. Plus, I'm going to say $2,000, 2,500 in transportation. They're putting that on all these cars these days. So I think you're in for 40 grand on this particular car with the options and so on and so forth. When I get through the full road test, I'll have the sticker for you. But again, solid looking car. You saw the and I purposely got some of the car at night, because if you're shooting a car named Nightshade, you should be shooting the car at night, right? You should be showing the people what they're getting at night. It's at least I thought so. But it's I mean, take a look at that. The grill and the blackout stuff, and that stunning red color on this car just make it a beautiful car to look at and a pleasurable car to drive. You know, this is a car. I drove a Camry, but not this current model year. I drove a 2021 Camry across country when I came out here back in 2020. And it was king of the road. It was one of the best cars, road cars that I had driven. Now, they gave me the top of the line Camry, and I had loaded with stuff. But I from Pittsburgh clear across country in January, and either in snow or drive pavement or whatever we took that car through was a great driving experience. Never once did I feel, even going through snow up in the Rocky Mountains, like I couldn't handle it. Like the car was, whatever systems they had in this car compensated for my inabilities as a driver. And I thought that was a pretty interesting thing. And now, listen, I've told you a million times, I'm a good driver. I think I'm a very good driver. But to have the assistance, to have the help, to have the ability of a car to do something, to lift up some of the load for you with the safety equipment, things that they put into them with LiDAR and radar and all of the different DARs that come along is a beautiful thing. And it makes you feel good. So Toyota, nice job on this car. And well, like I say, we'll have a full review for you in a couple of weeks. But you'll be able to go to our social media channels and look at this thing and put your opinion there about this car. What do you think of this Toyota Camry? If you have your wife driving around town, this may be the car you want to put her in. Your husband driving around town may be the kind of car you want to put them in. Maybe just again the safety record and the build on these Toyotas, the care that's put into them. I'm a big fan of Toyota and what they do. They build cars right. I wish that American companies did the same thing. I wish that the cars that we built didn't have to go back. And listen, every car goes back for recalls and there's certain things, but I think it fears people away from some of the brands of cars that we review. I think there's some of the brands of cars out there that we review that people are a little afraid to buy because they're worried about the recalls. They're worried that they're going to lose their car for a year or a month or 2 weeks or whatever. And we're going to have somebody in the next couple of weeks to talk to us a little bit more about automotive reliability and how how you can shop if reliability is your number one thing, how you can shop for a car, what criteria you can use to shop for a car, besides just looking at the number of recalls on a car. Is there other things that you can look at that give you, if you want a trouble-free or a stress-free ownership experience when it comes to taking a car back to the dealer and dealing with all of that? Is there a way you can do it? Is there a method that you can study, research, and look at, find out if that car is everything they say it is? All right. That's going to put another edition of Drive Time in the books. Sorry, we had a bit of a problem getting our open going this morning and our show going this morning, but we did want to get it to you, and hopefully we get those little kinks worked out. I say that every week, but do we get them worked out? Well, no, but that's what's charming about the show, right? Thank you so much to Jim GORZELANY from Forbes magazine for joining us this morning and talking a bit about electric vehicles. I get some comments about that I believe too much in the electric vehicles, and you know what? Maybe sometimes that's true. Maybe this is a technology that I care about um, because I believe that they are a part of the puzzle of so many different things that are going on in this country that would possibly make us great again once we put them into use. And I think electric cars, and I think the jobs that could be had with those cars, and I think the technology that is being developed because of those cars, and the fact that we as a nation could use less power and not be the hogs that we are sometimes with things like electricity and so many things, that they're a part of that answer of making us a better country. They're a piece of it. Not everything. There's a lot of things, but they're a piece of it. And so thanks to Jim for that. And thanks to you, of course, for listening. Thanks to George Jackson for sponsoring our program. We thank him um, every week because he sponsors our program every week. And he's a great guy. If you need business advertising or promotional items, anything from pens with your business name on them, golf towels, so on and so forth. He's a good guy, and hopefully you can uh, give him your business if you have something for a need for items like that. Tchotchke, he's the tchotchke man. Call Judge, he's the tchotchke man. Anyway, find him at gjpromo.com on the web, on the internet, on social media, and let him know that Vinnie sent you so that he sees the power of his advertising at work. But get there and order those, you know, not too not too early to start thinking about what you're going to give out to your employees for Christmas, right? Here's George with the answer. Here's a guy comes along, says, "Oh, you know what? These T-shirts look fine for your Christmas party. Maybe these nice calendars. People use whatever. George will take care of it for you. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Well, I'll catch up with you on Monday with Michael at 10:10, if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, for Mikey and Vinny Take on the World. And I'll catch up with you with more talk about cars next Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Find us in our podcast. Find us in our video posts on all of these different social media channels, and find us on YouTube. We're on YouTube with our program all the time. You can sit there and go through all of the drive time radios for the past 5 years are on YouTube. Maybe longer, actually. Yeah, I think there's a bunch that are on as well as some bizarre stuff from earlier in my career. If you get a chance, pull a road trip to Cuba sometime. You want to see the video you got to see is the tape of the searching for the lost Corvette in beautiful Havana, Cuba. That's one you'll want to watch. All right. Thank you. Who do we got here? AJK was listening. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas Tomad. Thank you, Ari for lifts. Yeah. Why do both your eyes look like you are squeezed hamsters? I don't know. You tell me, Ari. Famous. See you Monday after Lord's will and the creek don't rise. Until then, take care of each other and have a good rest of your weekend. Bye-bye. Get out there. Go look at some cars.